16 speed humps and 3 roundabouts and 114 new enhanced crosswalks and
114, get out of here.
It's going to help people get to school. It's going to help people get to the Orange Line. It's going to help people get to the LA River.
Uniting a lot of neighborhoods and making these corridors for biking and connectivity to the Orange Line real. $2 billion for this out of the surplus, we feel, is a very important next step so that we can see these bike highways. This is the right year to make sure we make a big bet on active transportation.
But I think we're going to call you the Oprah of like the safe streets movement. It's like, you're just like giving us money. Like, we're going to get millions of dollars. Like,
you get a curb cut and you get a curb cut.
I'm not
you get a
giving
compact
away
traffic
cars.
circle.
This isn't just some engineer in a back room. It needs to be from the community.
Welcome to Bike Talk, KPFK. We're doing it on Zoom until all this COVID madness is over. Then we'll be back in the studio. My co-host Nick Richard and myself, Don Ward, are here today with some great guests as always. We're going to bring on Deborah Murphy and Hilary Norton. Deborah Murphy is urban design and planning principal, active transportation planner, designer, and grant coordinator. And she's the founder of LA Walks. She does the things in the background that cause these big agencies to do things. And that is insanely important work that just doesn't get seen by the public. And we have Hilary Norton also, who's coming on. She's the chairwoman of the California Transportation Commission. Deborah, you recently scored a grant. I apologize. I'm not the most articulate person when it comes to talking about all this stuff. This is like wonky stuff But you got us some big money out in the valley in Canoga Park. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So over the last 13 years, I've been writing lots of grants, mainly for the city of Los Angeles to fund active transportation, pedestrian and bike projects, open space, and climate adaptation projects. The number has now gone up to $278 million that I've helped cities and nonprofits get for these projects.
Yeah, we're gonna do a round of applause.
Awesome. Yay, awesome.
I'm
Very
talking
proud
about
of that.
Deborah,
But it's also been about
back there.
getting them properly implemented. But so I often get hired by LA Metro. They, similar to what Mark talked about this grant, they pay for grant writers to help cities apply for statewide funding and other funding. So there is a program at the state level that's run by the California Transportation Commission, which Hilary is involved with and is chair of the commission, along with Caltrans, called the Active Transportation Program, ATP. So the whole goal of the ATP program is to shift mode of travel from driving to more walking and biking, to make it safer, to increase the number of trips people take by walking and biking and getting on public transportation, making it safer so we reduce crashes. And we don't call them accidents. There's no such thing as an accident. Everything's a crash or collision. There's usually a reason behind everything. Help build community and make a connected network of improvements that really can be transformative for a community, and that they utilize some innovative techniques and technologies. So the city of LA decided they needed a grant writer. I was assigned to the Canoga Park project to work with the Bureau of Street Services on a project that they had initiated under a planning grant to look at kind of the downtown area of Canoga Park. Because Climate Resolve, who is a nonprofit who looks at how we're going to deal with climate change, and particularly in the valley where it's very hot, wanted to address urban cooling kinds of issues, along with transportation improvements. They worked with Alta Planning and Design with the council office and Streets LA to come up with a concept idea for what needed to be done in Canoga Park to address urban cooling and pedestrian and bike and transit connection improvements around the Sherman Way Orange Line station. So that's a Sherman Way kind of between Owens Mouth and DeSoto. So, pardon me. So
And there's a little town there. If you
Sherman Way on Owens Mouth, it's very cool.
It's really charming right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Little
so
shops
that's really the heart of the proposed project is Owens Mouth. It's just a little bit over from Topeka Canyon, the big mega street that all the major shopping centers are on. But here's this great little downtown. And it's also a disadvantaged community because one of the focuses of the ATP program is to fund improvements where people are already walking and biking, where they're already taking public transportation, but the area is not safe and convenient, and there's lack of connections and all that kind of good stuff. So we were able to take the kind of independent concept ideas that were developed in that climate resolve, also planning and design plan, and develop it with street services into a network of improvements. So there's like 7 miles of new improvements for people walking and biking. The area is all the way like from Valerio at the north down to Van Owen on the south. So that's like a mile. And then from like Topeka Canyon over to Browns Creek. So it's a really, big area. It'll have about 2 miles of new cycle track. Most of that is on Owens Mouth. So that'll be a protected bike lane all the way from Valerio down to Van Owen. We'll have about 3/4 of a mile on Sherman Way from the Orange Line station over to DeSoto. And then some connections because this is right near the LA River. And a lot of these streets have a hard time when they get, they got the LA River there, but people can't adequately get to the river from the surrounding streets. So there's some better connections there. As well, there's no good connections on many of the north-south streets to get over to the Orange Line bike path. So there is some new pedestrian bike signals that will connect people, because right now you have to go like a half mile out of your way to cross safely at a traffic light at Sherman Way or all the way down at Bassett. So they'll get those improvements. There's 8 schools in this neighborhood. So they'll get on Valerio and on Varial. There'll be speed humps along there. There'll be mini roundabouts at the intersections, all these things to do traffic calming to make it better for people walking and biking. Yeah, so we've got I got numbers here. I got all kinds of numbers. We're gonna have 16 speed humps and 3 roundabouts and 114 new enhanced crosswalks and
114. Get out of here.
Yeah, it's up 114. They're going to 110 new reconstructed disabled ramps, 39 new disabled ramps, 20 new benches, 150 street trees. So again, it's that comprehensive package of improvements that really impressed the reviewers of this application, that showed that there's this whole network. It's going to help people get to school. It's going to help people get to the Orange Line. It's going to help people get to the LA River Greenway, whether it's to get to their job or a school or to do recreation. I mean, this is mainly about transportation for more than recreational purposes, but it really creates a whole network of improvements. And
I love it.
The transformative nature that Caltrans said, if we're going to fund some big projects, you better prove to us that you're doing something that's really going to change people's mind about their neighborhood. And like you said, then Owens Mouth is this very charming commercial little street. And
Owens Mouth and Sherman Way is like, what was that, like a railroad town at some point? Like there's these little clusters, like in Van Nuys, there's a little downtown where they the development was
a lot of it was around where there, I mean, for Van Nuys anyway, it was because of the trolley car. I forgot if there was a trolley car stop near here, but most likely. Anyway, so we were able to convince Caltrans and the CTC that a $30.7 million application was worth them funding. The city also has $7.8 million in match. So this is really like a $39 million project. So Canoga Park's getting big time.
Yeah, that's good.
And I would add,
Hilary, were you on the other side of that? Is this like you received the application or how?
Yes. And I also want to say that when Deborah's talking about $30.7 million, the average application that we funded was 5 million. So
Yeah,
this
it's
was
huge.
really something where it's like the application was funded because it was so comprehensive, because it really did talk about uniting a lot of neighborhoods and making these corridors for biking and connectivity to the Orange Line real. And I think that's the part that is so important, is that we can't just do these sort of special areas and have them not connected. And that's why we are moving forward with that $2 billion request out of the budget surplus. But I will say that one of the things that was so important about what Deborah did and Climate Resolve and others is that people don't realize that in this part of the valley, the number of days that are over 100 degrees, it's not just heat about 80 plus, it's over 100, especially last year. And as our climate is changing, it's just murder. And so also having the cool pavement and being able to walk and ride bikes so that you can cool off and street trees is really important. It's a health benefit as well as a safety benefit. And so it was just an extraordinary application, and the combination was too good to pass up. And I think it was just really says a lot about Deborah's expertise when she unites these disparate projects and makes sure that they interact, because that's really what's going to get people to feel like they can get out of their cars and do something else, because it's all been thought of and it's all networked beautifully.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, because I didn't get to my list of the urban cooling stuff. But yeah, we put cool pavement along the Orange Line, bike path, make a little bit better separation between where people walk and bike, have some like shade structures at certain like cooling station points along the route on the Orange Line between Valerio and Ben Owen.
Yeah.
So people have a place to rest, they can fill their water bottle, they have a bench to sit on, chill out, meet your friend, you know. So Dawn, you know, you need to meet some buds out there. You say, hey, meet me at Sherman Way and the Orange Line, and we'll hang out and get some water.
I ride on the Orange Line in that area a lot, and you know, it's true. There's a lack of connection, like Owens Mouth. Like I want to be in that neighborhood, and it's crazy right there. It's
like they think
besides the
everybody
intersection.
Going along the bike trail and not making a connection into the neighborhood. You know, you just don't go from point A to point B at the beginning and end of the Orange Line. You're stopping in between, and you got to make the east-west connections and all of that. Yeah. So and the shade trees are key. And you know, this is something that I've been really pushing on Caltrans over the years, because when I've been writing these ATP applications since 2014, and the first thing they would always say is, well, we're not going to fund trees. You can only do like less than 10% of your budget can be used for trees, because we don't do that. You know, you get that some urban greening money to fund your trees. We're not going to fund that. And I've been like on the phone with Lori Waters and other staff over the years to sort of say, it's essential. People are not going to walk on the street if they don't have shade. They're not going to ride their bike in a hot neighborhood like this if we don't have trees. So over time, and other people obviously have done this too, not just me, that through that encouragement, they're now more willing to fund these kind of the trees and a little bit of the beautification work, not at the expense of doing the nuts and bolts of getting a good bikeway, but anyway. But the whole point I know that Nick wanted us to talk about is a lot of cities don't apply for these grants because it's so competitive. And they spend all the time, this time around, you had to have a score of 92 to get funded because we had so little money. And I think the issue is we don't have enough money. It's not that the projects aren't good enough. And yes, we want to have these big transformative ones, but some smaller projects in smaller cities also need to get funded. So I think Hilary should tell us now about some strategies. How much money was allocated this year for was it 440 or something?
Yeah, and then one thing I do want to say about that is that 100% of the projects that we were programmed were benefited disadvantaged communities. I mean, so that it's like, not only are we making sure that the money is going absolutely where it needs to go, but that the programs were 5 times oversubscribed, especially during COVID. People really reignited their love for biking, and people who didn't normally bike were starting to really understand the beautiful experience of slower streets and biking and walking. And so one of the things that we have asked for, and it's important that that in our annual report last year, we said this program is oversubscribed, and we actually asked for money to come out of cap and trade for additional ATP money. We have long felt that there should be more funding sources for active transportation, federal, state, and otherwise. So
yes.
But I also want to point that this last meeting that we had with the CTC, our vice chair, Bob Alvarado, said, look, let's just do this fully and in the surplus, because the surplus is $25 billion, to have $2 billion go to active transportation projects. And the reason is because there were so many projects that scored well, but also we want to fund some important things like bike highways, and those bicycle highways are projects like Rail to Rail and Rail to River on Slauson, the San Gabriel Valley Regional Greenway Network, and the San Gabriel. Like, we want, instead of sort of waiting and piecemealing projects just in order to get these connected corridors, let's do the whole thing. And, Measure M had over $400 million for the LA River Bike Path. And it's that same thing where we want to have a totally connected corridor and do it all at once. And that's why spending this money now on major projects and that connectivity is so important. And that's why $2 billion for this out of the surplus, we feel, is a very important next step to get these larger projects that fully connected, so that we can see these bike highways as a way of talking about this in the same kind of conversation that we would have with a bus rapid transit or a major, boulevard. That's what we want to make sure we can do, like whole cloth.
I had a quick question.
Instead of over 20 years.
That's right.
I had a quick question. You mentioned cap and trade could possibly fund this. Is it also possible for the gas tax to fund this, or did they?
Well, the gas tax does fund some of it. That's what we're talking about. The active transportation program is through SB1, which is the gas tax.
Amazing.
But because of the ways that the programs were set out when SB1 was created, there are certain limits in what each program can fund. And so we're saying, look, we've shown that there's all this interest, but we're not the only game in town. SB1 is not the only funding source for, zero emission travel in the state or in the federal government. Have other people come in and understand what these fully executed projects look like and do for communities and for the goals like Governor Newsom has for reducing carbon emissions and moving people better in a fully, active transportation, zero emission way. And so that's what we also think this is the right year to make sure we, make a big bet, as they say, on active transportation.
Are you finding that the climate is the selling point, or is it just a whole? Is it just a whole complex web of things that you sell people on? Well,
I think part of it is the climate. I think what people really do understand is that these networks, if you're going to invest in bike corridors, don't have them be, a couple blocks here and a couple blocks there. Do it so that people can actually have a safe trip the entire way that they want to travel, so that you can actually start looking at bike commuting and bike travel, like for recreation, feel that you can send your child to bike safely to school on a corridor. Those have to have, real protections and real networks, so that people don't feel like, well, you're safe for this spot, but not for other spots, etc. And I do think it's important because the bike corridors will also help the some of the challenges of bike pedestrian interactions on sidewalks. That we want to have safe bike corridors because we want to also have safe walking corridors too. And so if we can invest in the combination to do it thoroughly in 1 year, it makes it better than doing it piecemeal when you have these other interactions that may make walking less fun and secure as well.
And it especially works like in a political sense too, because piecemeal projects always get bemoaned by the public. There's like, that's, that's not usable, or that doesn't work because it doesn't connect.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, as much as it's a bit of a disappointment, the My Figueroa project from Martin Luther King up to 7th Street in downtown, 3 miles of some protected, some buffered bike lane. But in 2 years, there's been an over 600% increase in bike ridership on Figueroa. Right. So just imagine if it would have been the street we all dreamed of, and maybe we'll get there. We'll look at what was implemented under the Prop 1C grant as a demonstration project, and then we'll do the real thing later. But that's phenomenal. And we need to use that as an example for you do a real improvement that really can get people from USC and Expo Park into downtown. People who live in South LA can get to their jobs in downtown on a corridor like Figueroa, get off the sidewalk, as Hilary mentioned, because that's where we were seeing all the riders. Back in 2008, when we applied for the grant, we made statements about how, most of the cyclists were on the sidewalk. And that's not just kids. That was, guys who lived in South LA and you get their job at Staples Center as a janitor or whatever, were riding on the sidewalk because it was too dangerous.
Yeah, Figueroa is a nasty street. Seems like a slam dunk too. It's like, well, how many students at USC and how many businesses in downtown?
That's why we got that grant back in 2008. It was all those numbers. You use all this data you show. And that's the other thing I'm very proud of. I think some of you know Mehmet Berker. He always works with me and does all this great data collection and all those maps that we utilize to have and they're not required documents, many of them that we show in our grant applications, because we want to prove all the destinations that are there, the connections that can be made to these important locations that the community needs to get to their job and to do their errands and such.
And that's why we recommended cap and trade as a potential for funding, because Deborah's right. The data is so important, and there isn't a lot of good mile by mile biking and walking data. And that is a shame, because we really have the technology to do it. And it's so important, as the governor and the legislature and the federal government are all looking at how we're counting zero emission travel. The fact that we are not counting all the walking and biking we're doing as contributions to those really important goals is a lost opportunity. And it shouldn't be there, because the more that we can have those metrics, the more we can start embedding that into traffic demand management opportunities and these other larger funding options that really require metrics to show that it's a mitigation and that you're actually traveling by zero emission active transportation.
Well, I think some of the things that'll help with that data is the state, California's Strategic Growth Council has their Transformative Climate Communities grants, and part of each of those grants is they have to keep all the data because they're using that cap and trade money to fund projects. So I don't know if folks are aware, but back in 2017, the first round of those TCC, Transformative Climate Communities grants, the Watts community got $35 million with the Housing Authority as the lead partner, along with 16 other partners. Tree People's going to plant 4,000 trees. There's going to be bike and ped improvements. There's 250 units of affordable housing. There's a new urban farm that WLCAC is doing, and solar panels and stuff like that. So all of those projects are going to keep data, because the state is going to use that as a resource of an example of what we can do if we are getting more people to walk and bike, and we're getting cleaning up greenhouse gases with changing to electric dash buses and planting these trees and stuff. So this data collection part, I think, is a really key one. And luckily, like the thing I mentioned with Figueroa Corridor, DOT finally took over doing some of the ped and bike counts that LA Walks, which I'm the founder of, and the Bike Coalition for like 10 years had volunteers. I'm sure some of you guys were out there counting folks at intersections. I did Sunset and at Sunset Junction like three or four different times over 6 years. And so the city's doing that. They need to do more.
Yep.
They only did like 30 locations or something. They need to get that up to like 3,000 because this data matters and they can improve the success.
Yeah,
So-
and to support our $2 billion request, we're going to put the request up on our website at CTC, but we would love if more people supported this and let the governor know that it's important and there are projects that are ready to go and could really use this money now. And we're going to have this also in our May CTC meetings. So please, if your listeners are supportive of this, we absolutely have to hear it because numbers matter. And, you know, this is something where surplus money, it's a unique opportunity to do it right. And we really think that it's important to get this money now to do it right now.
So, okay, where do people go? You mentioned it's on the CTC website. Let's get people
Right. If you
to the
just
right
look up
spot.
California Transportation Commission, it's going to be up on the website on Monday. And then
Okay.
we'll have information about our upcoming meetings and in May. And because they're all, on Zoom, it's going to be easier than having to show up to testify.
Oh my God, that's one thing I love about the silver lining is you don't have to go to some crazy meeting downtown.
Well, you don't have to go to Sacramento. I mean, how is that?
Yeah. All of that stuff.
That's
all
even
that
better.
stuff.
So
They need to keep that. How are they going to keep this format or what? Like, we need this.
Well, I hope there's going to be a
Getting
hybrid.
sidetracked.
I hope there's going to be a hybrid format of, personal interaction and this, screen interaction so that people can do it. And, the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, has done this hybrid format actually for a long time because the SCAG region is so huge and it works very well. So and the city council has been doing that with before COVID had their Van Nuys City Hall and LA City Hall, and they would take testimony from the Van Nuys City Hall. So
satellite office kind of idea.
Exactly.
I just want to say thank you, Deborah, for my Figueroa, and thank you for Canoga Park. And what else should I be thanking you for?
Oh, you could thank me for that $35 million for Watts. You can also thank me for $23 million for Pacoima and Sun Valley. That's all.
Eagle Rock. Don't forget my neighborhood.
And then
Eagle Rock, huh?
Yeah.
And then $16 million for Eagle Rock Boulevard. And
okay, so like we've had Jim Shanman on before in the past, and I was calling him the Mr. Rogers of the bike scene, but I think we're going to call you the Oprah of like of the safe streets movement. It's like, you're just like giving us money, like we're going to get millions of dollars, like.
Right. You get a curb cut and you get a curb cut.
Yeah, no cars. I'm not
you get a
giving
compact
away
traffic
cars.
circle.
No car giveaway.
But
giving up like East Side Riders, which you're giving away bikes and tennis shoes and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah.
So I think we're also learning that cities need to be hiring you to get those grants, right? Like,
yeah, I helped Culver City get the funding. This one is just about finished now. This was also an ATP grant back in 2015 for Olinda Street. There's a new protected bike lane that goes from Washington Boulevard down to Culver Boulevard, and a bunch of improvements on Washington Boulevard there near, what am I forgetting? Elementary school. Just escaped my mind. And then some other improvements up on Venice Boulevard and then all around this school there. Bayona Elementary. It's Bayona Elementary.
I'm wondering how you do what you do so successfully. Data is one key part of it.
Yeah, data's, and the best part is when my firm or firm like me gets hired to both do the community-based design process as well as write the grant, so that we make sure that the things that the community has come up with during that community-based design process, which is like what we did for Eagle Rock Boulevard. We had a series of 4 workshops where the community identified what are the problems and the opportunities. they sat around tables and marked all this stuff up on plans of Eagle Rock Boulevard. This is from York to Colorado. They then, at the next workshop, broke into groups and designed their stretch of that street, where they wanted new traffic lights, where they wanted the bike facilities, where they wanted new crosswalks, what were some of the side street issues and connections over to Eagle Rock Boulevard. And then our design team coalesced those ideas into a proposed scheme that then we reviewed again at the fourth workshop with all community members. And then we turned that into a grant application. So that's also what the CTC and Caltrans is looking for, is that the community generated these ideas. This isn't just some engineer in a back room coming up with some idea. It needs to be from the community. And that's, I think, the best thing that California is doing, is that they make this a requirement for state parks grants, for those TCC grants, for the ATP grants, for all of this funding. The state is really on it, that the community asks for these things, the community designed them, and the community will be involved in implementation.
And it's so important because the money needs to get spent, and there's nothing worse than giving money to a project that, obviously you're seeing that if it's 5 times oversubscribed, you're beating out lots of other projects. And so if that money's sitting someplace and not getting spent, it really is a waste. We want to make sure that every project is getting worked on and that money is going out and doing the good it's supposed to be doing, because there are 4 other projects that could have been using that money every single time.
Yeah. So that's why, I did the Eagle Rock Boulevard application 3 years ago. And now I'm in Zoom meetings with, not getting paid, with Streets LA and with community members in Eagle Rock to say, now we're going to hold your feet to the fire. We're not going to let you, mess up this design, come up with something else. We ask for these improvements and we're going to make sure it gets implemented. So my advice to Mark is, just be there along the way and just be that rabid dog, at the heels of the Public Works Department with your elected officials to get your projects implemented. It takes a lot of hand-holding and a lot of demanding, but that's the way it's going to pay off. And then, like Hilary's saying, there's money out there for these projects. Yeah. So even though Beverly Hills, has got more money than many other communities, there is funding available, especially, and only if you're going to implement the vision that your community's created through the Complete Streets Plan or your bicycle plan or mobility plan, whatever you call it. So.
All right, Deborah Murphy, Hilary Norton. You guys are like a 1-2 punch, right?
Yeah, we've known each other for right?
Yeah.
I like that. I like being Deborah's wonder twin. I like that.
Oh, now I'm your wonder twin. No, you're my wonder twin.
No, you're my wonder twin. No, I love it. Okay, so we're gonna get that California Transportation Commission website link up somewhere with our podcast, so people can go there. They're gonna put in comment on
$2 billion.
Yes,
$2 billion.
Yes, Governor Newsom, put this in your budget. $2 billion for ATP and for bike highways. Okay,
maybe we need to have a talk with Streets for All with Michael Schneider, because those guys have been doing a great job of putting out emails with calls to action. So maybe there's we can get that in there and
we can do
help
that
you guys somehow.
Los Angeles Walks, and we get the Bike Coalition.
Okay, cool.
Mark can get that out to the people he knows, and Don, you got, and Nick, you've all got good mailing lists. So yeah, just really inundate with that input. Let's get the money.
Well, thanks.
Get it.
I like that. Let's get money. I swear to God, last week we were all kind of trying to brainstorm about lawsuits and all this stuff, and it was a little bit depressing. And today it feels the exact opposite. It sounds like there's tons of money and tons of promise. So
there's tons of energy around this, which is exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Deborah Murphy and Hilary Norton, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Coming on the show, and golf clap, more than a golf clap. We need Nick, do we have an audience cheering sample that we can throw on real quick? All right,
All right,
cool.
kiddo.
Thanks for coming on, guys. We're gonna
you.
have you guys back on in the future, and come
Anytime.
back anytime.
Bye. Okay.
So that was incredibly uplifting. Wow, like just when you thought there was no hope, all of a sudden there's all this hope. So I don't know. Last week had me down a little bit because I was like, "There's no hope. We're not going to get things done." But here we have Deborah with all this great news. There's so much money available. I didn't even know that we had a budget surplus. I thought COVID was going to kill everything, and there's going to be a bunch of new taxes or something. But I guess the gas tax and cap and trade, and probably a bunch of money from property taxes and so forth because of all the housing rise in prices and everything. Who knows?
This $2 billion, it comes from, I still don't understand, but it comes from what's the fund called? Is it different?
I thought it was the
places?
ATP fund.
The ATP fund. And the ATP fund comes from
The state budget.
Okay. All right. But
This is where your average numbskulls like ourselves don't really know what's going on.
Mhm.
So it's good to have the professionals on to tell us the good news. So cool. All right, with that, we're going to take it out. Thanks for tuning in to Bike Talk, the KPFK live stream. Handle biz.
I rise in the morning and greet the day. Pull out the bike and I'm on my way. The transportation shows I care. Every turn of the pedal cleans the air. Green and the green, I'm saving the planet. Just like my friends Dale, Sean, Toby, and Janet. No greenhouse gas, a tiny carbon footprint up your ass. I'm on a motherfucking bike. I'm on a motherfucking bike.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bike Talk. If you want to hear more, go to kpfk.org, navigate to programs, and choose Bike Talk. On the Bike Talk page, click on the archives link to play or download shows posted in the last 4 months. Go to biketalk.com and copy or click on the RSS link to subscribe. Our Twitter handle is BikeTalkPFK. On Facebook, we are Bike Talk. You can become friends and join our group.